Hello, everybody. We have come to it at last. The season finale of the first season of Picard. In Arcadia Ego Part 2. So early on in this episode, Rafi and Rios are trying to fix the ship based on some Borg tech that they don't understand. And it just sort of kind of works and does what it needs to do. And Rio says something along the lines of, this doesn't make any sense. And honestly, I think that describes the entire episode. A lot of it just doesn't make any sense. All right. Okay, so this episode is the culmination, right, of the entire season. And it's supposed to feature the epic showdown between the synthetics and the organics. But there's nothing epic about it, okay? The plots make no sense, and so I'm not gonna really be doing sort of a plot by plot review like I usually do. I'm just gonna talk about different things that sort of happened kind of in the episode, all right? So Nerissa is still alive. Why? I have absolutely positively no idea, all right? And she's hiding out in the Borg cube, undetected, all right? Now, when last we saw her, it seemed like she was being torn apart by XBs, all right? But somehow she survived that, and she's hiding in the ship. And the only question I have is why? Why is she still alive? She adds absolutely positively nothing to this episode. 709 finds her. They end up flirting a little bit. And then 709 ends up killing her. And it's for you. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a more satisfying death. I mean, honestly, anywhere that she died at this point, it wouldn't matter. She still killed Hugh. I don't feel like the fans will feel any vindication no matter what happened for that. And also towards the end, 709, talks about how, she regrets killing Nerissa a little bit because maybe it wasn't the right thing to do. Maybe you shouldn't just kill people just because it feels good to do. So I guess it was supposed to be some type of epiphany for her. But again, it was an unnecessary plot twist. We really didn't need to see Nerissa again. Okay. Then we have the other half of Twincest, where after sneaking in and out of the Borg cube undetected, all right, Narik finds Rafi and Rios and decides to switch sides. Why he decides to do this is not explained, and again, it makes no sense, okay? Here we have this person who we're told, okay, was basically raised, okay, to find the sins and destroy them, okay? That's his whole sort of vocation in life. All right, you see this in the way that he's manipulating Soji. He's apparently falls in love with Soji, but still tries to kill her. There is no reason whatsoever that explains the fact that he's turned to the other side. Except for the fact that I guess they want to keep the character around because they feel that the character is interesting. It just absolutely positively makes no sense to me. But okay, alright. Meanwhile, Killer Agnes has helped Picard escape probably what is the most comfortable confinement, alright, that we've ever seen. They find their way back to the ship, which is empty, alright, because Rio, Rafi, and Reese, okay, and what has to be one of the laziest written scenes that I have ever seen. I mean, really, they're sitting around telling the audience what it is they're going to do, what the plan is before they actually do it, alright? It's the writers didn't even try with this episode, it's they just wanted to wrap things up as quickly as they can and move on because even they're bored with the storyline and the characters that they've created, all right? So Picard has this light moment, where he's back in the captain's chair and he's trying to figure out, how this new ship works and the tech works, why Killer Agnes is helping, and they fly into space and they see that there's this Romulan armada, okay? And they pretty much figure, that they're screwed because one ship versus a whole Romulan armada, okay? But of course, Killer Agnes comes up with the solution. And for one brief horrific moment, there are like dozens of this terrible character like in front of me, like instead of the one. But, that just doesn't last like long, all right? But I digress. So while Picard and Killer Agnes are on the ship, and the rest of the crew, Rafi, Rios, and the Reese are in Sithland, Soji is trying to operate the beacon to reach sort of the synth overlords, while Picard is trying to reason with her via space Skype, alright? So, the Romulan armada is poised for attack, and then a scene which should be surprising to no one, alright, that was clearly set up when we last saw Riker, and Riker let us know that he's not retired, he's just on leave. Captain William T. Riker shows up heading the Starfleet Armada, okay? Now, is it cool to see Will as the captain of the Starfleet? It's always cool to see Will. Like, Will is my favorite Star Trek character, and I won't apologize for that. So it's cool to see him. But then again, a lot of the things that they do just for the sake of nostalgia, to me, is just kind of a cheat. Here's a feel-good moment for you in lieu of an actually well-written plot. So, Anyway, Will tells the Romulan armada to stand down. And while all this is happening, I have a question. How do the Romulans have an armada? I would think that the Romulans were scattered and in disarray. Like, isn't that what the senator told him, Picard, when he was on the planet with Eleanor? That they basically been scattered, destroyed. So, who's in charge? Why are all of these soldiers and ships around Commodore O? Like, I thought that she belonged to a specific subset of the Romulans. If that particular subset had all of these ships and all this firepower, shouldn't their focus have been on helping the Romulans evacuate and resettle instead of hiding out somewhere trying to find these Sith to do this plan? I mean, they really let their people just die instead of helping? Or is this the Romulan fleet? And is this the Romulan fleet? Isn't this an act of war for them to be knowledgeable about Commodore O's plan? Because Commodore O is clearly a Romulan spy. And so, again, that makes absolutely positively no sense whatsoever, right? Anyway, Soon Jr. realizes sometime where all this is happening, that not Soji is the one that sort of sets this up, and he just turns her off. He turns her off, and then he goes into the town square, and he tells everybody to just stand down, alright? Again, he just changes his position for no reason. I guess he figures, hey, maybe the orcs aren't dangerous, alright? Maybe we shouldn't, kill them, alright? Picard makes one last speech to Soji, which really gets to her, and she stands down, and it's over. It's over. And just like that, Commodore O backs down. Commodore O, whose entire life has been dedicated to destroying the synth, back down because they decide that they're not going to activate the homing beacon? What does that have to do with your theory that the synths are going to destroy all of humanity, humanity or organics? Like, right now, this is actually the time that you strike. I mean, you're already at war. You would risk the battling with the Federation. You would risk anything to complete your mission. They're zealots, all right? You're telling me that they just did all of this work just to give up? That makes absolutely positively no sense whatsoever. But almost as much sense as we'll just let him go. Let him go. I mean, you infiltrated Starfleet. You were responsible for the destruction of Mars, which is still burning to this day. All right? You killed hundreds of thousands of Starfleet citizens, all right, with this plan. Okay? But you're just going to let them go. All right. Great. So, after all of this happens, Picard collapses and they beam Picard down onto the planet. And I'm afraid that it is the end of the line for Captain Picard. Do we as an audience buy that this is the end of the line? No, because if Captain Picard was really dying, I would think that since you had Jonathan Frakes in the episode as a guest star, Will Riker would probably be one of the characters that was surrounding him, as opposed to these people that he literally just met 2 weeks ago. So we all knew that it was going to be some type of bait and switch, right? So it turns out that the golem that we saw, the body that Soon Jr. was preparing for himself, he gives to Picard. And they put Picard's brain into the synth. And Picard is just cool with it, alright? Picard, who has spent over 2 decades being haunted by the Borg and what the Borg did to him, is perfectly okay with being turned into a synth without his knowledge and without his consent. He's just fine with it. You know? And that makes even less sense when you pair it with the scenes that just happened. So in the scenes before we find out that Picard has been turned into a synth, he's having these scenes with Data. Okay, so for those of you who've seen Star Trek Nemesis, and for all of you Star Trek The Next Generation fans who reject Picard, and then you're fanning, nothing else has happened after Nemesis. That's your right. After, what they've given us. Can't say I blame you. Picard, Data, before he died, uploaded his memories into B4. Alright? Somehow, Dr. Maddox got a hold of those memories and was able to use the neurons to create the other sense. I'm guessing. I don't know, because they don't explain that. Alright? But Data's memories is put into sort of a matrix. And Data, he is tired of existing. Alright? He wants his life to end. And he gives a speech about everything needing to be finite, right? So, that's the lesson. It's the same thing like for those of you who saw the episode of Voyager where there was a Q who wanted to die because he didn't want to live forever. It's sort of like, what is life? Again, goes back to the theme of what they have been talking about, that they didn't flesh out very well, but the theme of what is life, okay? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to exist? So, if that is the thing, shouldn't we let Picard go gently into that good night? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want Captain Picard to die. And I think if he did die, it might have been a riot. But this is the storyline that you set up. You set up this fatal illness for him, okay? He's in his 90s. He's a legend. He's lived a good life. Once again, he's saved the galaxy. This might have been a good end for him. So, why prolong it by making him a saint? And, basically curing him of, like, all of his physical ailments. Now, okay, they tried not to do a cheat by saying that he doesn't have superpowers, he's not immortal, his body will give way anyway, but why do it? It's just one of those things that just doesn't make any sense, alright? So now we have the wrap-up, basically. So, it has been apparent for a couple of episodes, okay, that Killer Agnes is not going to be punished for anything that she has done, okay? There's no talk about going to Deep Space any place to put her in jail. Alright, in fact, she's all smiley and kissy with Rios at the end, and it's just all good. We're just supposed to just say, oh, she's redeemed, and just forget about everything that she's done, okay? 7 of 9 is on the ship, which absolutely made no sense to me. So instead of returning to her work with the Rangers, she's on the ship and she's holding hands with Rafi because, is it sexual? Are they playing arm wrestling? Like, what the freak is going on? Alright? Again, they just kind of met each other, right? Makes no sense. Alright? Then we have Soji, okay, who has decided that she wants to travel with the crew. Because why? Because she's an adventurer, she's a wanderer, but they don't have a mission. So what are you doing? Oh, and also conveniently, the ban against the synths have been lifted just because. Just like that? I mean, even though it was a Romulan conspiracy, the synths still did prove that they were able to be programmed and they were able to be responsible for massive destruction if they weren't kept an eye on. So I would think that the band, even if it would have been lifted, would have been slower to lift. I don't think people would have just been like, oh, cool. You know, that was just some sense, or it was a big conspiracy, so we're just all good with the synth now. That's kind of not how prejudice works. And look around and see what's going on now. People blaming people irrationally for things that they can't control because other people in their heritage have done it. So, again, that makes no sense, all right? And then I want to talk about Picard. Why is he there? All right? If he's all healthy and well and he's made up of Starfleet, why not go back to Starfleet and continue that mission? Like, the mission that he went there to do, like to save Soji and ultimately to save the synths, has been completed. So he's just gonna play second fiddle to Riaz and just be on his ship and just bounce from one paid assignment to paid assignment. The great Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, bounty hunter. The great Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, pirate and scavenger. Like, it absolutely positively makes no sense. Like, when I'm actually looking at the crew, you know, 7 of 9 and Eleanor, who's just kind of chilling, and Picard and Rios and Rafi, I just looked at it and they look like people that it makes no sense that they're still together, right? And now that you've wrapped up their mission, you know, it just seems like this should kind of be the end of it. You know, it's like they didn't set up anything for season 2. So, you know, I just, you know, it's just really interesting to me. And one of the things that I want to talk about now that Picard is over, and I'll talk about this a little bit in another video, like my feelings of Picard overall. But know that I'm somebody that came into Picard that really wanted to love Picard, okay? I know that there was a lot of bad feelings about Star Trek Discovery, undeserved in my opinion. You know, was it a perfect show? No, but I felt like it was a show that was learning and feeling itself out. And I felt like a lot of those negative feelings about that was bleeding into Picard. And I intentionally stayed away from anything that had to do with Picard, sort of on YouTube or on the internet. I didn't read any of the reviews because I didn't want my view of Picard to be tainted, because this is a show that I really came in really wanting to love. My expectations were really low. The only thing that I wanted was respect for the characters that I had grown up loving, you know, since I was a really little girl. And that was for Will and Deanna and Picard and Data. I felt that I didn't get that. And when that's all I asked for, I don't think that was too much to ask. I would have really given them, you know, I know I talk about Killer Agnes a lot. I mean, I'm just not going to like her. So, I mean, they can do pretty much anything that they want with their characters. I would just sort of just continue to rag on her. But really the thing that made me disillusioned with the show was the decisions that they made to you know, kill Will and Deanna's son. Sorry, that just, you know, took it to a dark place that I didn't feel like, you know, it needed to go to. I feel like with this show, okay, so I didn't like Enterprise. And I didn't like Enterprise because it intentionally didn't feel like Star Trek to me. If you guys remember, they didn't even want to call it Star Trek. It didn't have a theme song. It had that really silly, straight from the heart theme song. And I felt like in that instance, you had people who knew Star Trek and had fallen out of love with it. And in this instance with New Trek, you have people who love Star Trek but who don't understand it. And I'm not particularly sure which is worse, to be honest. Both of the groups, the old group with Pillar and Bragnon and stuff, in this particular group, they were trying to, and they are trying to remake Trek in their own image. And they're not doing it out of malice, okay? They're doing it because they want to make the show more relevant. But I think they're missing the forest for the trees, and missing the fact that the reason why Star Trek has lived on for 50 years, all right, is because people love Gene Roddenberry's vision. They love Gene's vision, all right? Of his future and of humanity, and that will survive and that will thrive and will learn and will grow into the best parts of ourselves, and that's attractive, especially now, during sort of the dark times that we live in. And I don't feel like they get it, and I don't feel like they get us, all right? I think the fans get blamed a lot for when they criticize Trek, like, why are you criticizing Trek? You're not being fair. And true, some of the criticism isn't fair, but some of it really is fair. Like, some of the writing is not great, the dialogue is not great, some of the decisions that are made with the characters are not great. And I think sometimes, I'm a writer too, so I know getting that kind of criticism when you work so hard on something, you don't love it, but sometimes I think you need to soak it in and accept it and make some changes, accordingly, and I think the sad thing is that the writers are really trying to create a show that they want us to love, okay? And conversely, we want to love the show, right? But the chasm between us, because we don't understand each other, is sort of like making that impossible, because we can't seem to give each other what we want. They can't seem to give us as fans what we want, and we as fans, I don't think from their point of view, are giving them the freedom and the creativity that they feel like they need to create a good show, because we're so stuck in the past, or we're so stuck in canon and things that we need to let go. And so we end up with a hodgepodge like Picard, which is trying to be new and different and innovative, but yet throwing these different speeches and pontifications and morality things out there in an attempt to try to please old school fans, and nobody ends up being pleased. So I guess, the question going forward is, will season 2 be any better? I don't know. I think it's going to be a completely and totally different show, much like every year Discovery is a different show, for the good or for the bad. But I think the bigger question is, are we really looking at a reimagined version of Trek? Is Gene Roddenberry's vision gone? Okay? And if that's the case, is it time for old school fans to let go? To let go of Gene Roddenberry's vision and to move on, and to, let the people who resonate with the new Trek enjoy the new Trek, and, just to let it be theirs, and to enjoy the Trek that we love. I mean, God knows we have hours and hours and years of the Trek that we love, and, maybe it's time to just say, this is not for us. This is for a new generation. All right. And I hope that they love it, and I hope that they connect with it in the way that we connected with ours. That's something to think about as well. And last but not least, as season 1 draws to a close, I guess the question that I will have is, will we ever find out where is Beverly? I guess, next season, time will tell. Thank you so much for watching all of my reviews. This is the first time that I've ever reviewed an entire season of anything. It was fun. Thanks for joining me. The good, the bad, the ugly, the intellectual analysis, the rants, the fangirl, um, exclamations and over the top, pronunciations. But, I think it was fun. Star Trek has been a part of my life, since I was a 10-year-old girl. And ultimately, I'm going to always stand it, even if I don't agree, with where it is, at this particular moment. So, thank you guys. If you like my reviews, please watch and subscribe. Picard is over, but there are more reviews to be doing. I'm going to be doing more reviews surrounding Star Trek Picard, maybe some different kind of character analysis, and I just look forward to seeing you in the next reviews. All right, everybody, stay safe, and until next time.